Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. So come get some.
The sun peeks over the horizon. Your excitement builds. The animals in the field start to stir. The forest comes alive with sounds. The sunlight glimmers off the lake, and the mountains start to shed their morning fog. So load up your favorite ammo, grab a few buddies, and head out to make some memories. And tell the rest of the world that you've gone hunting. Gone Hunting is a 1 to 4 player game of family fun where you build a unique hunting ground, scout different animals, buy weapons and gear, and roll dice to hunt. Complete objectives and try not to miss. So let's load up the truck and back Gone Hunting today. See you in the field.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Paul.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Realities of Comic Books. My name is Paul Gomez, and I've got a very special guest today. That's Sam, the Crazy Man Vera. How you doing today?
What's up? Thanks for having me on.
Man, so in these episodes, we're talking to new creators and kind of telling them ins and outs stuff. Of course, you got a kind of show just like that. Yours is 10 minutes or less. Is that correct?
The Craze in 10 minutes or less, yes.
That is an awesome show. I know I've told you once. I'll probably tell you 100 times. Whenever I first started, I used to have it on in the background, and I used to watch it as I studied and learned how to jump into the business. So I appreciate that.
Well, thank you
so
thank
much.
You.
But yeah, your show is Catch the Craze, and I wanted to bring you on here today. Especially, we're going to be talking about the ins and outs of hiring interior artists, if you will.
Right.
You know, there was a lot of bumps that I had whenever I hired interior artists, and there's a lot of new things that I had to learn that I know a lot of new creators, whenever they come up and ask me, I kind of want to let them know how to steer away from those kind of danger zones that I came across. But before we do all that, I do want to talk about the project that you currently have on Kickstarter. It's an amazing project. Would you like to let us know about it?
Yeah, it's about this little guy right here. His name is Duty. He's from the planet Uranus, and we're up to book number 3 on Kickstarter right now. I'm excited about this. This is the biggest campaign yet as far as how much is on there. But this is, in issue 1, Duty crash lands on Earth, and he's in the woods. And issue 2, he has to survive all the crazy animals in the woods. And now in issue 3, he finally gets into a house. And in the house, there is a Chihuahua named Herman, who knows that there's an intruder in the house. And upon contact, he thinks it's a talking jalapeno. So he has to get this intruder. And the father, the owner of the house, he thinks that the dog is losing his mind because he's tearing the place up. And so the comedy begins there. And then the government they found the crash site where the UFO is. So all worlds are closing in on Duty. And this is a fun book, and I'm excited about this issue. But what makes this one even special, this campaign, is that there's also another book. I wanted a monster book because I've been drawing Duty in a lot of different ways. So There's also Duty's Monsters on Planet Cthulhu. And this is a 1 of 3. It's a 3-part miniseries. Takes place after Duty's time on Earth. So this is in the future because There's Anything in My Toilet is only a 12-part miniseries. And so this is Duty going on another adventure because he's sitting in class. He's there with his buddy Cheeks. And he's like, I'm bored. I want to go on another adventure. And Cheeks like, well, what are you talking about? You just came back from Earth, and you've seen what mess you made over there. And so Cheeks' father happens to be the general of Uranus's military. So Cheek overheard his father talking about how some of his men have disappeared on the Outer Rim, and the only thing that came back was one word, the word Cthulhu. So Duty hears that. He doesn't know what this Cthulhu is, never heard of it before. He says, I'm going off, and he just goes half-baked out to go and confront this mystical creature. Doesn't know what he's getting himself into, and that starts off another series of events, and that's part 1 of 3. So there's a lot to offer in this campaign. I'm excited about this one.
We'll definitely talk a little bit more about it. Now, I do want to tell all my viewers out there, definitely check it out. One of my favorite tiers. You have a donating to kids, like 1-for-1 add-on kind of thing. Is that right?
Yeah. So I partner with Comic Book for Kids, like I did in the previous two campaigns.
Yes.
So you have an opportunity of buying a book and sending one book to Comic Book for Kids, or sending 5 books. You have 2 options. Last time we sent over 50 books last time, so we're trying to do top that each time, and goes to a great organization. Kids in the hospital suffering from cancer. And the reason why it's important to me is because my brother was born with a defective liver. He spent most of his childhood in the hospital, and he was a recipient of a lot of charity. And when I would go to the hospital to visit him, they donated art books and toys, and when I found out about this organization, I got excited. I said, you know what? It reminded me of my brother and the smile that it put on his face, and I want to be able to continue that legacy.
I definitely love that. That's one of the things that jumped out at me. Of course, I'm a fan because I did buy a sketch cover with Duty and Buzz Lightyear kind of outfit, which was amazing. I sat and read it with my youngest. He was laying on my back, looking over my shoulder, and we were laughing, having a good time. So I got to say, I'm a fan of it. My kids are a fan of it, and I want to tell everybody out there, definitely go check it out. Hit that add-on tier to donate, because I mean, this is a great cause. If you're just buying the book to help out, if you're buying the book because it is funny, no matter what age you are, whether you're young or old, go buy the book, donate a book. It's for a great cause. Having said that, let's get into some of the topic of the day.
Yes.
So you've done more books besides this one, is that correct?
Yes, I have several books. Yeah.
Man, let me ask you, how do you pick the interior art? I mean, is it you yourself doing all the arts on the books that you're on?
Not all my books, but there's an I told that I do all the art. I write it, I draw it, I color it, I do all of it. The Forbidden, which was my fantasy book that I produced, which is this right here.
Beautiful cover on this book too.
Yes, so this is Forbidden. The cover was done by he's a concept artist for gaming. This guy I forgot his Eric Ifata. Fantastic artist. He did an amazing job. The interiors were done by 2 artists, Anibal Arroyo and Primi Santra. And this is and so I had 2 different artists on this book. So I got lucky with Anibal, because when I first started Forbidden, it was back in 03 or 05. It's around there. It's early 2000s. I wrote the script, but I knew that I wasn't the right artist for it. And, so I knew I couldn't capture the look that I wanted for the book that I created. So I kept it in the burner. I wrote the script. I had the entire Bible. I had all the chapters written out. I had the character bios, timelines, everything. And so I had it in a big loose leaf book, and I kept it in a drawer until we were at a Star Wars convention in Secaucus, New Jersey. And at that time, I had a book called Cosmic Wars. So for whatever reason, I thought I can push Cosmic Wars at a Star Wars convention. I was foolish, because I didn't push anything. The only 2 things that came out of that event was, one, we got interviewed for a documentary called Inkswell, and that went straight to DVD. And we met Anibal Arroyo. He was on leave from the military, and he was an artist, and he was showing his portfolio, and he showed us his portfolio, and I was like, this guy, his style will be perfect from what I want to do with Forbidden. And so we talked, we made a deal. I gave him all of the at that time, this was when we were still doing on 11x17 storyboards. Right. I gave him all the supplies. So I gave him the storyboards, everything. I said, here, and I gave him the Bible. Boom. And it was so easy to work with him because he fell in love with the project.
Right.
So when an artist loves the project, you're going to get the best from them.
Yeah.
When the artist looks at it as just another job, you're going to get whatever they decide they want to give you. Right.
So that's a big point to look at too. I mean, one of the first things I really wanted to touch on was, finding that style that you're looking for, because me as a new creator, I definitely don't draw. So whenever I was thinking about getting into comics, it was like, oh, I can draw, but I don't think anyone else would appreciate it that much. So when I started looking at different artists, I didn't really know that, you know, one artist had a different style compared to the other ones. You know, this is something that was really new to me. I had thankfully hired an editor who started teaching me the different aspects whenever it came to penciling, inking, and coloring. And, you know, I didn't realize that a bad colorist could take away from such a good line artist.
Yes.
Or, you know, having an inker who didn't know how to shade that, or, you know, heavy inks or whatnot could pull away from the beautiful lines that some people do. And this is one of the things I want to tell new creators. You have to look and do your homework into the styles that you want, not just the pencils, not just the inks, but the colors as well. And sometimes if you're going black and white, that's understandable and that's your choice, but you still have to worry about the inks and the colors, or the inks and the pencils. But also you have to talk to these artists and make sure that they're understanding and into the project as well, because if you find an artist who's kind of half there and half not, sometimes that art doesn't show out as well.
Right. And I think for me, one of the things that I make sure I stipulate is that the illustrator has to provide the inks as well. I want them to ink their own work. So because they're going to be able to complement their own line art, they're going to protect the integrity of the pencils, whatever it is. So in the early days, Anibal, you know, he's a traditional artist. So, you know, and he does amazing work with his inking. Right. And then Prime Santra, he was a digital artist. Right. So it was easy for him to manipulate his pencil lines when he did inked it digitally. And that was important for me because if they weren't able to do all three, pencil, inks, and colors, I want at least the first two down, because I didn't want to take the chance of somebody screwing up the line work, the beautiful line work in the pencils. And that's important. Always try to protect the integrity of the art.
Now, I mean, I have seen one or two inkers out there that I think are amazing and can do so much more work to line stuff than I guess most out there. But most inkers, I agree, should be the line artists, because they do complement each other that well. But whenever it comes to colorists, that's definitely another aspect as well. You do all these jobs yourself in the latest book, and did it take a lot of study to do it all? Because I mean, do you do flats and then colors on top of that?
Yeah. So I was always just I always played with coloring, but I was never a colorist. It wasn't. I only used coloring when I needed to do a logo or a promo piece, but not for my books, because I wasn't confident in myself. So it wasn't until the beginning of this year when I realized I just can't afford to continue to pay outsource anymore. I have to learn. So I purchased Clip Studio Paint, and I just kept practicing with it, and I watched a lot of video tutorials on YouTube, and from that point on, I took off. And I learned I'm a quick study. So and I love information, and I love to absorb. So and there's always, while I had colorists, like we had a book called Cast the Crazies where we had a guy who did all of it, I just wasn't 100% sold on the coloring, right? And then sometimes you have to go through multiple colors to find the right person. And so for Duty, I wanted to be able to give it the look and vision that I created in my mind. So I put that burden and that pressure on myself to be able to nail it down. So now I'm just having a blast. I've just finished today my 111th episode of live stream drawing, and I do it from start to finish. So I start with a blank canvas and I finish with a fully colored piece, because I forced myself, number one, to get faster and to really improve the quality of my work.
Now, that's one of the things I want to tell new creators. It's whenever you're hiring an artist, usually if they're faster and better, it's going to cost a little bit more. Definitely, if you're hiring an artist who's doing the lines and inks and then the color separate, they're going to charge different rates.
Yep.
These are some of the things that you definitely need to look into. Having said that, your art on your latest book is beautiful, very beautiful. I've seen some of your live sketches, and I think they're great.
Thank you.
So, what made you decide to go with this style whenever you were doing Duty? I mean, was it did you create the character and do the style around it, or did you
Yeah,
have
yeah.
influences of other styles?
No, it's always been my style has always been more. I'm a big Jim Henson fan, right?
Yeah.
Dark Crystal, Fraggle Rock. I'm a
Yeah.
big Jim Davis fan. Garfield, Peanuts. So my style has always been simplistic, cartoony style, with a little flair because I add some things to my style. And for years ago when I started in comics, I was always trying to be something I wasn't. I was trying to mimic Todd McFarlane. I was trying to mimic, Mark Silvestri. I could never accomplish what they were able to accomplish because it was always, I had to work longer to try to achieve the look. Right. So for me, if I try to, because that was the style that was popping back in the 90s, if I try to mimic that style, it would take me a couple of days to do a page.
Right.
And I just didn't want to put in that much time to achieve and it didn't feel organic. So
Right.
I gravitated, and I finally, it was when it was a book that I read, and it was like, finding your inner authentic self, right? And so for me was me being authentic was being honest with myself, saying that's not my realm, that's not my lane, this is my lane. And I needed to now build my reputation in indie comics where people could recognize my style,
Right.
not Sam trying to look like this guy.
And you definitely have a distinctive style. Like I said, I've seen a lot of the stuff that you were drawing. I've seen the sample pages and of course your sketch art. You can just tell that it's your stuff. And that's why I was asking about your style, because it does seem a little bit different than most. It definitely doesn't seem that manga style or that Marvel cartoony style. It is a little bit different than most. Now, if you were talking to a new creator and they were looking for an interior artist, what would be your best advice for them trying to find an interior artist?
Number one, understand what look you're looking for, right? So what's the message that you're trying to convey in the story through visual art, right? So are you looking for gothic? Are you looking for, a period piece style? Are you looking for futuristic? What's that style you're looking for? Go and do your homework, and then don't settle. Right. That's number. I think what happens is independents are so desperate to say, "Hey, I got a finished book," that they'll compromise because of a budget, whatever. Even if you have to spend more time to save the money, to raise the money, whatever you got to do, don't compromise, because your first time out, first impressions are lasting impressions, right?
Yeah.
So, and you want to make that experience a good one. So vet out a few people, identify those looks, those guys that are looking for work, and vet them out. And then one of the things that I do, it's part of the whole deal. It's like, in order for me to proceed, I love your work, but I need to see my character in your style.
Yeah.
I need to see how you would shape. Yeah, I need to see a sample page first. If you're good with that, then I'm good. And I've never had any pushback. So they're like, all right, you know what? I said, give me a panel. You don't have to give me a full page. Give me a panel.
Right.
Here's a sample script. Give me a panel from this, and I want to see how you envision and how you can interpret the words into a moving image, a static image, and that helps me. And sometimes it's a long process, and sometimes you get lucky. I got lucky with Prime Santra for Forbidden because I needed somebody who's going to complement Anibal's work, because Anibal did the first two issues, and he needed to do the last 6 issues, and so I needed him to be able to complement the look. And he was one of 50 that I went through portfolios. I went through DeviantArt, I went through all these places, and then we negotiated on the budget and the whole bid and the timeline, and you go through all that stuff. And he was a breath of fresh air to work with, and one of the thing I always ask for is just give me thumbnails before you go to inks.
Right.
Let me look at the thumbnails before you go to inks.
Yeah. I definitely like to see some rough sketches,
Yes.
kind of thing. Yeah, that's what I did with my interior artists. Usually I gave them about 2 or 3 pages of the beginning and said, hey, draw me one of my panels that has my character so I can kind of see how you feel with this, and if you're okay with it, how things are going, so I can know what's going on. I myself went through about 20 interior artists on my first book because I had a few that fell out, and I had to, interview several of them, of course, before I picked them. But being a brand new creator, the past year or so, it was like, whenever I came into it, I didn't realize that an artist had a certain style. I figured if I gave them my script that they could draw just about anything. And that I feel is one of those blinding kind of sights that a lot of artists or creators come in with. They just think that any artist can draw any kind of style. And that's kind of farthest from the truth.
Yeah.
You know, even if they have a style that's kind of what you're looking for, but not exactly it, it's always good to get those sample pages so you can understand what their art's going to give your script.
Also ask the right questions.
Yeah.
Because if you're because there's a lot of artists that don't like drawing animals. Right?
Right.
So if you have horses and you have whatever it is, ask them, are you okay with drawing this? Are you okay with drawing that? How I have some scenes that call for some, you know, wide view angles of like maybe a panoramic view of the city or whatever. How are you with this? You know, let me see some samples of what you've done that reflects that. You know, I think you have to go and have a list.
Yeah.
And then do a checklist, you know, and then check it off as you go. And then because what's going to happen is the people are going to fall off. Right, the ones who are uncomfortable are going to fall off, and don't
let that disparage you, because there's going to be more people out there. Take your time, because you do want to find that right person. This is going to be the stuff that impacts your career if you're in the comic industry.
Yeah, with Forbidden, I got lucky because we found people that loved illustrating the story. They fell in love with the characters, so I got really lucky with Forbidden, with the first 2 issues of Disneyland, my toilet, I had a colorist on it. And she loved the character. She fell in love with it. So it makes a difference. But as good as she was, it still didn't give me exactly what I was looking for with the coloring. So which is why, like, Duty's Monsters on Planet Cthulhu, all of it's done by me. And issue 3 of Disneyland My Toilet, I did everything with the exception of the lettering. The lettering was done by George Medina. But because I wanted a specific look with the style. So you'll see some more vivid colors in issue 3 than you did in issue 1 and 2. And it's just things just pop more, and there's a look that I specifically wanted.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing is know what you want.
Yeah, definitely make a checklist. Like he said, there's definitely 100 questions that I asked my first go round, because I didn't know any of the answers. And like I said, I was lucky to have an editor who kind of pointed me in the right direction. But I know a lot of the creators out there don't exactly have that benefit. One of the biggest questions that I tell creators to ask their artists, you know, whenever they're interviewing them, is, what's your turnaround time? How long is it going to take a page approximately if it's, you know, 6 panels or so? You know, are you comfortable with this genre of comic? You know, are you going to be able to keep it within the set range that I want? Like, my comics are a little bit more mature than all ages, but less than adult, if you will.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure that my artists could do that as well. And so there's like tons of questions that you can ask, especially whenever you're talking about genres, because like, if you're going into horror genres, sometimes you like that dark and gritty, heavier on the inks and a little bit darker colors, as opposed to brighter, like clean lines. And again, you know, manga style, Marvel style, you know, there's so many different styles out there. You got to kind of look for it. Do you want watercolors, or are you trying to find something that's a little bit different and unique? You know,
and I think the more you clear in the beginning, I think one of the things that I do, like when I used, because now I don't need artists to do everything myself, but when I was, and Forbidden's done, so like that book is done, it'll be in bookstores next year. But what I did was, on DeviantArt, I go into the forum where, you know, like the work for hire section. I go in the forum and I put down and said, have a project, 6-issue miniseries, this many pages, this is the timeline, this is the budget. If you're interested, DM me on my account, and then I lock it. So the reason why I lock it is because I don't need the other guys to say, well, they don't agree with the budget, or they don't this or who, but you know, there's always these critics like, why are you? And it's always the guys who are not qualified, right? And so you're gonna get all. If that happened to me in the beginning, you know, so the form was just blowing up with all this crazy stuff, right? So I lock it. So now there's no comment. So if you're really interested, you go to my section on DeviantArt and you DM me a message. Hey, I saw your stuff. Whatever. Can we talk? what, and then here's my portfolio, here's a link to my website, blah blah blah, and then we start the conversation. And then sometimes, you have to negotiate, right? And then you look at, like the guy who did the cover, we negotiated the price. I mean, because this guy's a professional painter, and I wanted a specific look on the cover, and so we negotiated the price in the timeline, and I got perfection. I mean, this is such a beautiful cover, and so you get your money's worth, right? So if you can't afford the artist that's going to give you the look, then you're not ready to produce it. Wait until you can raise the money.
And that's definitely one of the biggest things is how much it's going to be with the page rate. I've talked about that several times. You need to know how many pages it's going to be and how much your finance is going to be until you get to this point. One of the things I do want to talk about is, where do you find artists? Now, you mentioned DeviantArt, because that's a great site to find artists. I found one of my artists on Facebook, groups and stuff, and there's plenty of groups out there. I've talked to people and kind of networked and found artists. Yeah. But what other ways are there that
conventions? Comic Cons, you go through all this, alley. They're always there trying to get work, right? Everybody wants to be seen there, right? So, go walk through the Comic Cons and network. Fiverr, Fiverr is good because they put you just got to have the money ready, because it takes your money, puts in an escrow, right? It stays frozen. It's in a holding pattern until you receive all the stuff and you're happy with it. And then they release it once you're happy with it. So at least the client knows they're getting paid. And I mean, the artist knows they're getting paid, and the client knows that they're getting the right service, right? So you're protected there. There's a middleman, right? So there's Fiverr, there's Instagram, all of social media. There's all these groups, and all you have to do is just post it out. Hey, look, but again, just be honest. Look, I got a comic book with this many issues, this many pages. This is the timeline. I'm looking for an artist with this specific style in mind. If you have an image of that style, post that image so that people know, oh, okay. Because I had some people who were just desperate for money. They're like, yeah, I would love it, blah, blah, blah. It's all right. Well, let me see my characters and your style. And then when I got it, it was nothing compared to what I was looking for. I was like, sorry, thank you, but no thank you. But be honest and provide as much detail as possible in the beginning, because the person looking at it, they're going to ask themselves, can I deliver? Can I do that within that window? Can I produce that style that they're asking for? They're going to ask that before they reach out to you. Right. Yeah. And so at least you give them enough information to process to be able to look at if they can do it. If you're vague, it's going to add for problems down the road. So try to be as clear as possible. And know your terms and know your limits.
And a lot of artists like references. One of the things that I did is I went out there and I looked for like at least 3 pages of a book that I felt like I wanted my book to look similar to. And so whenever I was hiring artists, I showed them these 3 pages and said, this is kind of the style I'm looking for. Come back, here's a script. Come back and show me if you can do a page or a few panels with my characters in that kind of style. Of course, whenever I saw their demos or their art, usually I would ask people who were along that same style as well. So it's not like you're going to go out there and find somebody who's a little bit cartoony and expect it to be more realism. That's definitely a little bit more of a stretch. Yeah. But I mean, there's several ways to find people like you mentioned. There's Fiverr, there's DeviantArt. I mentioned Facebook. Yeah, you mentioned Artist Alley, and I always say, if you can't find it through any of those, go ask comic creators. They obviously know a little bit of artists here and there. They'll help you out, especially if they're not using the artist at the time. They'll definitely give you the information.
Go to comic shops.
Yeah,
artists are always at comic shops. Yeah, they're always at comic shops, right? And ask the comic shop owners. They know most of their locals. Say, hey, you know anybody that's an artist that's looking for work? Yeah, I know Tommy. Start the conversation. You never know who it's going to be. And you know what? Go to your local art school and put a flyer. Talk to the faculty. Get a flyer on their job board and say, I'm looking for an artist. I mean, if you're in Jersey, I mean, was it Hubert School in Jersey? Right. I mean, boom, just go there. If you're in New York City, FIT, School of Visual Arts, put up a flyer inside. So there's so many options. You just got to, again, just Just be very clear and know your budget and know your timelines.
And don't say yes to the first
No,
person, because you want to make sure that it is the right fit, and it's not usually that first person that's the right fit. I'm not saying
here's the biggest one: work out the communication.
Yes,
because some artists are very recluse and they don't want to be bothered until I'll just send you the pages. I don't want to talk. Say, look, I like to see the thumbnails, and I'd like to maybe we could do a FaceTime or a Zoom call or whatever it is to be able to talk it through. You got to have someone who likes to communicate, because a lot of artists are odd and they don't want to communicate. And if you want to know that, just walk through Artist Alley, because most of their heads are down, right?
So whenever I picked my artists on my first few books, I gave them 3 pages so they could see my script, and I talked to them about it. Does this make you feel comfortable? Do you have any questions about these 3 pages? Is this script understandable on all 3 pages? Because this is going to be what it looks like throughout the book. A lot of it is communication, and I've talked in earlier episodes about scripting and how that's your main form of communication, because some artists don't really want to talk that much.
Nope.
So you have to understand it going in. You hire this person, and if they're not a very communicative type person, that's kind of on you, because you're that project manager and this is who you hired.
I had an artist that I had to chase, and then I just ended the relationship.
Right.
I was like, if I constantly have to chase you and wait for you to respond, they would respond with just, dumping a Dropbox link with all the pages. That was their response. They didn't want to talk. I was like, I can't have that, because what happens is my work, I get these pages, and next thing you know, I'm in Photoshop putting circles and arrows and saying, fix this, fix that. When we could have avoided that during those conversational moments, those moments when we could just communicate. So you got to be able to identify that in the beginning, and you should be able to have a good working relationship. There should be a level of respect. They should know. Here's the hard part. A lot of comic creators, they don't look at the job as you are the client.
Yeah.
Right? They just start to make, I'm just making a comic book. Just, leave me alone. You're to get what you want. So don't bother me. They got to understand this is a business relationship. And if you want more work, this guy's going to be talking about you. So if the client's not happy, he's going to tell a friend who's going to tell a friend who's going to tell a friend, and you're going to find a hard time getting a job. So learn how to communicate. Be okay. And believe me, I was awkward when I first started doing Comic Cons. I was like, oh my God, I got to talk to all these people.
Right.
Oh my God, right. It's like, how do I sell this book? It's like, I got to work on a pitch. Nobody told me about a pitch, right? All these things. But over time, you gain confidence and you learn how to communicate.
Yeah. So one of the other big things I wanted to talk about interior artists is revisions. I haven't really had to deal with this except for with one artist. They basically came into the project and said, look, you get about 15 revisions. If your script's not telling me what to do and I'm not doing it right, then I shouldn't have to be going back and redoing it that many times because of your script not being correctly. And I understood that. And as a matter of fact, that project, I think he only had 3 revisions throughout the whole thing. But, that is the main thing, because he basically said, after 15 revisions, I'm going to start charging you more. And this is something that I've actually heard from a lot of artists. So, I didn't know about it at first, but I can kind of understand that, because you're asking them to put more time into the work. And, as long as you're learning how to script and communicate with these people, then they shouldn't have to be doing the revisions that you're asking. One of the things that I also do is sometimes I'll draw the outlines of the pages that I'm like, here's a 9-panel page. This is kind of what I'm expecting. And artists appreciate that sometimes. Right. Sometimes they'd rather do it on their own. But again, that's the relationship that you have to build with the artist.
Yes.
It's a communication thing, and you have to give them a little bit of their.
Yes. Speaking of while you're talking, I have one of my forbidden scripts, right? So right here. And so in the script, when you open up the page, it'll say page 3 panels. Right. Panel 1, it'll give us full description of the panel, time of day, lighting, mood, scenery, the whole bit. So if I'm commissioning an artist, I give that artist enough information so it doesn't leave room for interpretation.
Right.
The reason why you get revisions is because you're not clear in your script writing, and you're just saying, this guy's going to be doing this, draw this. This guy's going to be doing right. And so if you're taking shortcuts with your script, you're going to have headaches with the production time. I mean, if you look at the script, it's right there. And it'll tell you how many panels, how many scenes, the caption, who's talking. So you know how to face the people, when they're talking, what character's talking to who. So you know exactly where to position all the players and how much room you need to give based on, word balloons or whatever it is. It's your responsibility as the client to make sure that if you're outsourcing, give the creative as much information as possible. Now, what happens is and because of that, I think with Anibal, there's probably 2 revisions in the entire 2 issues that he did. And with Prime Santra, it was more on just the attire on some of the characters, and that was it. But he got the landscape down. They both got the landscape, the imagery, the everything perfect because there was no room for interpretation. And that's our responsibility as the client. We have to make sure that we provide the tools and the information so that you have a successful project.
And we've talked about scripts before in a previous episode, and that's the main thing. Whenever you're hiring these artists, they're reading your words, and if they can't understand it, then that's where that communication factor comes in. One of the things I like to also include whenever I'm sending my script over is references. Yes. So I'll take pictures on specific pages. Like I asked for a leather jacket with like 2 armbands and a symbol on the back, and I took pictures of a symbol that I wanted. Or like my lead character was wearing a specific kind of jacket for the circus, and I literally bought the jacket, put it on one of my kids, took a picture of my kid with the jacket, and said, "This is what I want the character to look like." Perfect. And it came out perfect because the artist could see it and drew it from then on out, and that was my character's costume.
Yeah. And that's perfect. And, and I think that's, back to what you said about revisions. You got to also stipulate that in the contract. You provide thumbnails and 2 revisions based on any call outs. So put that in there. Now, if you're not satisfied, again, you missed a few things in your script. You weren't detailed enough in your script. So again, when you're working with a third party, give them all the tools, all the information, and then make sure in your negotiation process that you're clear on all the terms so that there's no deviation on any part. And that everybody is winning together. Once you shake hands, now it's game time. That means the creative understands their role. The client has given the creative all the information they need, and the client's satisfied with the terms. And now you guys go and ride towards the sunset. But if you don't do any of those things in the beginning, because you have to be a business person, and that's one thing that creatives don't like to be, right? We just want to create. Right. We don't want to deal with all that stuff. I don't want to deal with negotiation. Why can't you just take the project?
I got a story. I wrote it here. Yeah. And it's like you got to put it in a script so they can understand it. But
yes,
it's written. Yes. Yeah. And then it's like you got to manage them, and then most people are like, "But they're artists, can't they just draw it?" And that's the whole thing. Is like I kind of came in with that aspect that I didn't understand any of this, so right. I was glad. Man, I was blessed to have the editor that I had because he held my hand, showed and pointed me and all this stuff. Now, I hit a lot of road bumps, and this is really why I'm making this series. But one of the things that I did, and I can't tell people enough, go on YouTube. There are plenty of people out there doing it. Sam's got a great show, and like I said, the 10 minutes. And I want to talk about this for a minute. The 10 minutes or less. I don't know if I mentioned this. I think I have. What? I used to call it the 10 seconds or less. And the reason this is because I was doing all this studying in comic book, learning how to script, page turn, right. Panel flow, different styles of art. So I would be doing all this work, and I would have the YouTube on in the background, and it would come on 10 minutes or less. And then I would look down, look up, and I'm like, that was 10 seconds. So I was calling it 10 seconds or less. I was like, I need more, which I'm glad that you're like into episode like 90 something on that, aren't you?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, so much great. One of my favorite episodes of that was the convention breakdown. You broke down, the cost of the table, the cost of the banners, the cost of everything. So I tell people, go on YouTube, research this stuff, have it on in the background, learn from it. It wasn't just your channel, but it was like 2 or 3 other channels that I would have in rotation while I was learning all this stuff. And like I said, I appreciate it because I learned so much.
Yeah, I mean, today, because I'm getting ready for the Fan Expo next week, and so I was like, how do I streamline my table setup? So I was watching some of these really talented manga and anime artists and how they prep their tables. I'm still learning. I'm still trying to teach myself. I'm still trying to build, to this day. And I've been doing conventions since 2003. So I'm always trying to find new ways to display my stuff. And so where do I go? To the people that do it right. That's
exactly. It. Ask people. Most people want to help, or willing to help. I'm definitely, offered advice to anyone who's came up to me. And me right now, I'm studying a lot of the digital aspect. I don't know how to put all this stuff on digital media, make these little commercials and all this stuff that people are doing. And I'm still learning all this. The press release, I know that you did an episode on the press release. I'm still learning that stuff. And these are a lot of big things that you need to know if you're going to go into the comic career, because you're either going to pay for it, not have it, or learn to do it on your own.
Yeah.
And, if you're not going to learn to do it on your own, then you're losing a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And be prepared to be pissed. So I think that's the biggest thing, because it's frustrating, right? Because look, because this is the way I look at it. Every moment I take away from drawing or writing, I'm losing. That's the way I look at it. But then I had to flip my mindset, because all of that R&D, right, the research and development, for all that time that I'm spending researching, I'm really strengthening my long game, right? Because it's a long game. It's not a short game. So I think when you skip those steps, you're going to stumble along the way. You're never going to hit the benchmark, all these things, and you're going to be so angry. So part of being an indie creator is being frustrated, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think artists in general suffer from depression more than anybody else on this planet, right? Why? Because am I good enough? Why haven't I broken out here? Why is this? We ask ourselves all these questions. We're our worst enemy and our biggest critic. So be prepared to be frustrated, but use that frustration as motivation to propel yourself forward, because you have to be your biggest cheerleader. You have to understand taxes. You have to understand marketing. You have to understand business management. You have to understand how to negotiate, how to network, all these things, because it's all on you. And if you want to do this game and do it right and play to win, you have to learn those things. And the winning takes time.
Yeah,
it's not overnight. There's only those few stars that come out of left field and they just zoom. But they had a long game. It seemed like to us they came from nowhere, but they've been in the game for a minute too. We just didn't know.
And you just don't see it.
Right.
You just don't see it. Yeah. So let's talk about Catch the Craze for a minute.
Sure.
How long have you been doing that?
So Catch the Craze, I launched it in 2005.
Wow.
So in 2005, and there was 2 motivations for it. Number one, at that time in 2005, there was only 2 podcasts. There were Comic Geek Speak and iFanboy, and all their focus was on the big 2, right? And so there was nothing for us little guys, and we were breaking out as Crazy Comics, and I was like, where's the little guy stuff? So I went to a pod camp. And it was at the New Yorker Hotel, and it was a convention introducing what's going to come down the road as the next big trend, podcasting, right? Go figure, right? Now it's the norm, right? So I went there, and it was all cooking shows, right? So I was like, so I went to Sham Ash, and I said, hey, I need these mics, I need a mixer, I need these cables, blah, blah. And I went to my house, I set everything up, I called George and said, hey, we're doing a podcast, it's called Catch the Craze. And I said, now we need to get guests. And that's how it started. And we popped off quickly. We had celebrities, we had mainstream artists, we had a big focus on independents, and we had gamers. And then, but then I left comics in 2009 for 10 years. I left comics and I left the podcasting. I didn't understand what I had, because we were getting, at that time it was audio podcasting, and we had thousands and thousands of streams. And I didn't understand that, because no one told us about monetizing. Again, there's that ignorance, right? So it's one of the classes I skipped in the podcast. So when I come back in 2019 and we decided to relaunch it, At that time, my channel had like 39 subscribers,
Right.
YouTube channel, because at that was most of it was just me drawing on YouTube. So decided to come back, and then the shutdown happened, and then everybody started podcasting.
Yeah.
And so now it was an uphill climb. But my whole motivation for the podcasting was really to give the independent community a voice and a haven, a home, some place where they can come to and promote what they're doing, because there wasn't enough of it for us.
Thank you. I can't say thank you enough to you and Pops and every one of these promoters that push, all these comics to be seen and be heard. Because I mean, without a platform, half the time I don't think these people would be heard or even know how to get out there. So I thank you. I hope everybody else that's been on your show thanks you, because I know that there has to be hundreds that have been on your show. Now. Yeah. Having said that, let's go into your comic again. Let's talk about Duty. Let's talk about Duty. I love all these duties in the background and sketch covers. What made you decide to do all the character sketch covers of Duty?
Oh, Duty. So Duty is a teenager, and his father happens to be the Emperor of Uranus, right? And so there's these high expectations on him, right? And his guardian happens to be the general, right? So there's all these people that and all these expectations he has to live up to. So, what do teenagers do when they have these hard to reach goals set upon them, right? They run to a safe haven, and Duty's safe haven is his imagination. So he overcompensates with his bravado and his ego on the surface. But inside, he's scared, he's afraid, he's a creative failure, letting his father down. So whenever he's getting beaten, whether it's by a squirrel, a bear, a wolf, whatever it is, his imagination takes him to his safe space. So he imagines himself as a samurai, and the red ants that are attacking him are ninja. So he defeats them in his dream, but in reality, he's taking a loss. So Duty's like the ultimate cosplayer, and so I put him in all these different scenarios. It's like, we get to play dress up.
You definitely don't see that. And you do have one of those tiers, which you have a sketch cover. Is that correct?
Yes, I do have a sketch cover. You can get on the tier. And I do a lot. I move a lot of commission sketch covers at Comic Cons.
Right. I can understand that.
Yeah, not in many on the crowdfunding, but on Comic Cons, they fly off the table. But yeah, we have, but also there's also a sketch book. So
yes, I was going to bring that up later.
There's a custom Duty sketchbook right here, and basically, it's 50 blank pages that for aspiring artists to draw on, or if you have a child who you want to encourage to draw, you can get this book. And as a thank you for picking up the custom sketchbook, I will start the book off with a sketch in the front and a little note from Duty encouraging the artistic endeavor. So yeah, that's also available on the campaign as well.
That is awesome.
Yeah, so that's Sheriff Duty, and you'll see why he's a sheriff in this book. And so I started off, that's the first page of the book where Duty's trying to cross the street while Bobby is playing Frogger. And for anybody who remembers Frogger from back in the days.
Right?
They're like, what's Frogger? But yeah, so and now Duty gets to encounter humans. So, and also, if you're a parent out there, or grandparent, or guardian, and you have a 4-year-old, and you're not sure if you want to introduce Duty's Alien My Toy to your 4-year-old, there's Duty's Adventures, which is a children's book. And then
that's awesome.
Yes, and in Duty's Adventures, what's different about this is Duty's a child. He's growing up on Uranus, and he's going to elementary school, and he has to deal with a school bully. So how else do you deal with a school bully? You become a superhero. So that's what Duty does. Duty becomes a superhero, and he has to do battle with the diabolical egomaniac overlord nemesis Poo Poo. And and what's also great about this picture book is that for every page that you read, on the opposite page is multiple choice questions. So the parent and guardian can test the child on what they just read on that page. And it's multiple choice, and it's fun. And then the icing on the cake is the last 6 pages. There's 3 blank pages for the child to write out their own ending and 3 additional pages for them to draw their own characters. So it's a full interactive children's book, and it's great for Christmas. This delivers in November,
Yeah.
so you want Christmas present? That's a great present.
And one of the things that I don't really see on the campaigns is all the activity stuff that you have in the book.
Yes, so every book has
Crossword?
4. Yes, every book has 4 pages of crossword puzzles and activities. There's also a full-fledged activity book available as an add-on. There's a coloring book available as an add-on. So everything's available. That's your little duty growing up on his planet, you know. And so this is an example of the each page is going to have trivia questions based on what you just read.
I love that. That is great for the kids.
Yes, and that's Professor Ramsey's, and that's Poo Poo. That's the bully who he imagines as being the bully, the villain in his story. And who doesn't remember going on a school bus when you were a kid and the bullies in the back of the bus? Right? You never wanted to go to the back of the bus because that's where all the knuckleheads were, and so you always try to sit in the front. Yeah, so that's an example of writing out your own ending. So this is fun for the whole family to enjoy. It's my whole focus for the rest of my time on this planet is really just focusing on duty.
Yeah, and like I said, it's so great because whenever I read it with my son, he was like, looking over my shoulder, reading it with me and kind of laughing at stuff. And we were having a good time. I enjoyed it as much as he did. And it was, like I said, you have all these activities in it.
Yes.
You have such a great range of comedy kind of stuff in there mixed with the learning stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, I think for me, it's really important. Education is huge, and imagination is the key to growth and prosperity in my eyes. And if I can do my part to inspire the next generation of artists before AI takes over and starts doing everything for us, I want to do that, and and hopefully build a brand around duty, the way our predecessors have done with like the Peanuts and Garfield, and so my whole focus is really just on duty.
Now I back this because I've obviously at the previous book I backed this kind of to get the digital, and then I was thinking about upping it so I could do the comics for kids thing. And like I said, I love that aspect. I've got 3 kids myself. They've been inside and out of the hospital a lot, and whenever they are in the hospital, they get that one little gift or something that keeps their spirits up. I can't commend you any more than, it's just a great thing to have on any campaign.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think it's sometimes, like my brother, he you don't choose what happens when you're born. Things happen to you, and it's a very lonely feeling to be in a hospital by yourself. So when you're being flooded with things from people who don't even know you, and they just because they recognize your plight and your journey, and it gets to put a smile on your face, that can influence that kid's mindset, that can affect their chemical balance, and can help them get stronger fighting through the process that they're trying to fight through.
So you have all these stuffed animals, and do you have toys?
I know. So I have prototypes. So they're all prototypes because my goal, I'm pitching right now. I'm in the pitching phase, trying to build partnerships with licenses. And so they're not available right now to buy. But I have them soon, hopefully. Yes. Soon.
I believe it. I believe soon. Man, and put me in line for one of those toys because they look amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, so there's everything that was on the first 2 campaigns is available as add-ons, and there's a catch-up tier. There's Christmas is coming around the corner. There's a special duty bundle that'll be great as a Christmas gift. So there's a lot, for every budget, for every person. All I ask is that you take a chance, even if it's digital, take a chance and read the book. You're going to laugh, and don't pretend you're too cool, all right? Because nobody's too cool to laugh.
Because I enjoyed it, and I'm like 50 something or 45, but I enjoyed it with my kids. So it's a great book. It really is.
Thank you. And that's the thing. It's just getting more readers. it's easier to pitch duty when I'm in the public. It's always it's always a challenge on crowdfunding because we all know what's dominating crowdfunding is like the girls, right?
Right.
So
Right.
all those sexy pinups. So duty is duty. It's fun for all ages, and all ages is a key word for people to say, "Oh, that's for kids," right? No, it's for everybody. It's for everybody. You'll love it. You'll have fun with it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, this is coming close to the hour mark. I don't really want to keep you too much longer. I'm hoping that everybody goes out there and backs this project because, like I said, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of yours even before I even seen the project. Catch the Craze, 10 Seconds or Less, and Duty and Forbidden. I mean, you've done some great stuff. I don't doubt that you're going to slow down. And it's just amazing to see your work.
Thank you, sir. I'm looking forward to catching up at Cowtown.
Yeah, definitely.
In a couple of weeks. Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else you want to talk about the project before we go?
No, give it a shot. Check out Does Nail in My Toilet. If you know a friend, recommend it. And also check out Catch the Craze. In fact, check us out tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have Chris Hayes from Cowtown Comic Con on the show. So we'll be talking about the event that's coming up in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good. All right, I think that about wraps it up from here. Pops, I think we're good. Thank you all for watching.
Thank you all.
Great night.
Did it end?
We're gonna be out of here in just a minute.
There you go.
Let's see, what commercial do we want to play next? Let's do Path of the Pale Rider. Where's that one?
All right.
Where is it? Is it not in this studio? Jeez, all right. I gotta play a different one first. Cindy's always cool. Cindy Kemp, friend of the madness. You know what's up.
The original intention of the film was just for my personal use, but I thought with it being such a unique thing that I'd like to offer it to anybody who wants to see it. Things like that. And it's just a unique film of him.
He says, I beat you. He says, they say we came in under the dead heat. He says, that's not true because I beat you. And the American said, well, he says, if you like to think so, he says, but I know the real story. He says, I know I clearly won that one. See?
I'ma get it, you know I be on the way. Yeah. You know I be on the way. Man on a mission, you know I be on the what? Yeah, it's all hard, ain't no fear here. You ain't giving this to all, you steer clear. Never beat, I've been down and I reappear. You got some money on the line, you better put it here. Rolling in and doing that work.
How do you end this thing? How do you put the where's the brakes on this bus? I forgot.
Jazz hands. Jazz hands are done.
Comic Books for Kids provides comic books to kids in hospitals and cancer centers across the U.S. It's a place where we can all work together to make sure every child has a comic book. 100% of all proceeds go towards the kids. It's about making a difference, and while they're in the hospital, allowing them to fly like a superhero, battle dragons, or rescue teddy bears. We are in every state in the country and now support over 160 hospitals. Every month, we add more.
Visit